So welcome to the Insight Cafe. I'm your host, 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗃, and today, I have Steve Sims on the show. He is the modern day Wizard of Oz. He is the founder of Bluefishing, which is the world's most renowned and sought after luxury concierge service, which helps people to really and truly live out their dreams in fantastical ways. And I could spend most of this podcast talking about your bio, but I want to tell the audience what you mean to me. So a couple of years ago, my mentor at the time, Christina Berkeley, she told everybody in the group to read your book. And this book has changed my life. And I'll tell you why. Because it was so simple and so straightforward. And the fact that your background coming from a bricklayer from London to do the things that you've done today, it just blew my mind. And because of you, Steve, as a coach who didn't know anybody, who didn't have a network, I've gotten into circles where I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I've connected with like celebrities and professional athletes and CEOs and multimillionaires. And I've created unique experiences for myself and for my clients that you would be proud of. Like, this is for Steve. And I wanted to tell you on this podcast how much you've impacted my life and impacted the lives of my communities because of a book you wrote, and a coach told me to read it. And I've been doing that here in Bangkok, Thailand, and it's meant the world to me. So thank you so much.
Hey, look, reading the book's one thing, but doing something with it's everything. So congratulations to you for actually, stepping up and doing it.
Thank you. I'd like to tell you specifically how you changed one 15-year-old boy's life. So I had a client, the son of a very powerful businessman, and he was having some confidence issues. So it's here, coach my son. And part of the coaching program, I put him on a skyscraper, like the rooftop in Bangkok, in like a tall building. And through connections, I hooked him up with a professional fashion photographer. And we did a full-on like Vogue style fashion shoot for this young 15-year-old who didn't really have a lot of self-esteem, and he kept that profile picture for ages because he's never experienced anything like that. And that directly came from reading your book.
Good. I'm pleased. I'm proud. Congratulations.
So I brought you on today because, to me, you are the world's foremost expert on relationship building and building a powerful network and serving that network to create amazing things. And before we get into that, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about what Bluefishing does and also the other things you do, because I think what most people don't know is you have a lot of other cool things besides Bluefishing, such as your speakeasies, and there's a program to do with prisons, I believe, and there's lots of cool things that most people don't really know about. And I'd love for you to speak to that.
It's all kind of like change. The whole life is a journey. And as you already mentioned, I ran and founded the world's leading experiential concierge firm for billionaires and rich and famous people. When the book Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen was offered to me to write, I thought to myself, this will be fun. I've never written a book before. I was working with this fantastic person, Megan, and we put this book together. It wasn't until reading the book that it became like a therapy session for me, because it unraveled what it was I was doing. And for me, it's like me saying to you, how do you walk down the road? You go, well, I put one leg in front of the other. To you, it's just instinct. And as we were going through the writing of this book, I found that there was a lot of things that I had learned over the years that were instinct to me that, strangely enough, a lot of people talked themselves out of, because they thought, well, that's silly. That's not smart enough. That's not elaborate enough. But it was the most simple things that was propelling me forward and getting me where I wanted to get. And so when we wrote the book, we realized that, hang on a minute, a lot of people aren't doing the things that I'm doing, not because they're hard, but they've chosen to go a different route. They've ignored them because, oh, that's too silly, that would never work. Well, it does, and it's what's got me working with everyone from Elon Musk to Sir Elton John. And so we put the book together, and then everyone started contacting me, and I mean, it just unleashed. I went from, it was funny because when the book came out, I had 16 followers on Instagram, because nobody knew who I was. And then all of a sudden, very shortly, I think I'm on like 55,000 now or something. It just took off. And people were like, oh, how do I do this? And do you do that? And so I ended up traveling the world speaking. In fact, last year, around about this time, funny enough, I was speaking in Phuket for an entrepreneurs group in Thailand. And I stayed up in Bangkok because, as you probably know, I lived in Bangkok for a few years. 𝗖𝗂𝗃𝗁𝗂𝗃. And so I enjoyed Bangkok. I love Thailand. And so I've been traveling all over the world speaking. I coach both online and in person. I have a 𝗤𝗔𝗃𝗃 community online that we're very conversational in. And I started doing these events called speakeasies, which, like your example of taking that person up for the photo shoot, my speakeasies are there to twist your perspective, get you more engaged and open, get you uncomfortable to be able to receive more opportunities. Some of those things include being on the rooftop of Louis Vuitton, going to Elon Musk's Gigafactory in Reno, or going to prison with me. And I've taken people to prison for the last 2.5 years. In fact, I've taken over 100 entrepreneurs in small groups into a maximum security prison to speak to people on how they're changing their life. If they, in those 4 walls with life sentences, can be open to changing their life and changing who they are, then you don't really have an excuse. So it's a very harsh, ugly, scary environment that suddenly means that doing a presentation to your Monday morning meeting in front of your workforce is nothing. You don't get scared anymore. So those are the things that I've been doing. I've been challenging entrepreneurs to demand more of themselves, to increase their standards, and it's been very exciting.
I just realized something. In most of your podcasts, when they ask you what you're afraid of, you usually say that you're afraid of you're not going to have fun anymore. And what I just realized in what you just said is you're also challenging yourself to have more fun and doing more ridiculous things. And I so love and appreciate and respect that about you.
Yeah, it's funny because people operate different on fear. For some people, fear stops them, and for other people, it propels them. It's like the reptile brain in you, you know, it's fight or flight. You hear the bush suddenly rustle and you either run away or you prepare to fight. For me, the idea of fear is to stop failing, to stop having fun, to stop pushing yourself. That's what I'm terrified of. So for me, fear propels me to make sure I constantly try different things. It's like my speakeasies, you know, my private events. I do these for me, and I think, well, that's going to be fun. I want to do that. I want to meet this person. I want to try that. And I always do them in different cities. And at the moment, they've been all over America. We will be going international, so stay tuned. But we love doing these things where we get to meet different people, get to talk about different things, get to challenge ourselves. And I like it. I want to do it. And quite simply, the day that I don't want to do it is the day the speakeasy is dead. You know, so I do them for me.
It reminds me of something my mentor, Michael Neal, said, because he thinks about what to come up for content, what to write in his emails. And he said he heard something from a pastor at a university said, and they asked him, like, well, how do you prepare for your sermons? And the pastor said, well, I kind of speak to what I need to hear, and whoever else needs to hear it will probably hear it too. So we're just really on enjoying Steve Sims' ride. So, but if this speakeasy does come to Thailand, I don't care how much it costs, I'm in it. You know?
I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted.
So to me, in really studying your work, there seems to be 2 main things, which is relationships and building a network. And I'd love for us to explore these questions of how do you build a relationship to you? Again, it's a simple question, but to you and me, it might look very different compared to everybody else, like you just mentioned. And then we'll go into how do you build a super network. So let's start with relationships. To you, what does a relationship look like to you now?
Well, here's the problem with that question. Okay. Without a relationship, you don't have a network. Okay. Because a network is a group of people that are there to serve, support, challenge. They're there to participate to the benefit of your life. Okay, that's a network. If you don't have a relationship with them, they just become phone numbers. And therefore, it's just the same as the internet. You see, let's be honest, you could get the phone number of absolutely anybody in the planet today by, you know, going through different Google searches and different internet hacks. You could get the phone number of anybody. It doesn't mean that they're in your network just because you have their email and phone number. So you first of all got to understand that networks and networking is its sole goal is to build a relationship capital. Okay. And you build up a relationship by quite simply supporting each other. And that may sound ridiculous, but I'll give you an example. Okay. If I invite you to a party, okay, and I say to you, hey, I'm in Thailand this weekend and I'm going to have a barbecue in my garden, you know, or on my rooftop or something like that. Come along on Saturday, and you say yes. What is the first question you ask me?
Who else is coming?
Okay, who else is coming? Good question. What's the second question you ask me?
Off the top of my head, what time, where is it? I'm looking for details.
Details, location, time, you know. Okay, good. So who's going to be there and location
So
details.
it's like, what's in it for me, essentially.
Okay,
Yeah.
is there another question?
Gosh. Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Okay. Another question?
I can't think of one, but yeah.
All right, okay. Every single one of your questions was selfish to your benefit.
Yes.
Not one of them helped me, and I invited you to the party. Now, here's the strange thing. If you spoke to your mum, your girlfriend, or someone else in the house, and I'm going to encourage you to try this game. I'm going to encourage you to ask this question to, like, your mum, for argument's sake. Okay? Ask her the question. Do you know the first question she's going to come out with?
Oh gosh. I can't not off the top of my head.
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
The first question she's going to say is, that sounds fantastic. What can I bring?
Well, damn, Steve.
You know,
I just saw that. Yeah. What can I give? Right. What can I serve? Yeah.
Bingo. Now, you see,
Boom.
that's the problem with relationships. You know full well that if you're having a conversation with a coach, a billionaire, a successful business person, a celebrity, you know full well there's a benefit in it for you. Just by standing next to a very powerful person. You quoting the person that you coached was the child of a very powerful person. Right. You know that there was a benefit in it for you.
Right.
But you needed to make sure there was a benefit in it for your client.
Yes.
Okay. When people get into relationships today, the first thing they ask themselves is, how can this benefit me? You know, what can I get from this relationship? Who do they know? Who are they going to introduce me to? A lot of people will make friends with someone knowing that that someone knows someone very powerful, and they go through that route to get to that person. Okay. And that's fine. I don't have any issue whatsoever with you having that on your focus. In fact, I don't have a single relationship that doesn't benefit me. Not one. Okay. I am hugely selfish to the point that if it doesn't benefit me, what's the point? Okay. Now, it doesn't have to benefit me financially. It may benefit me making me smile. It may benefit me by challenging me. Me going to prison makes me no financial gain whatsoever, but it challenges the way I view life. And that's a benefit. So if the relationship doesn't benefit me, selfishly, I don't have it. But the problem is, you need to step into the relationship, if it's going to be called that way, being of benefit to them.
Go. So Steve, you were talking about prisons.
yeah, going into prison doesn't benefit me financially, but it does challenge my perspective. Okay. It does challenge the way I look at life, makes me very grateful of my life. So there's a great benefit in there. You've got to work on the fact that if you're going to get into a relationship with someone, you already know it's going to benefit you. You've got to consider, how do you make it benefit them? Now, just do your research. You know, like for argument's sake, we've jumped on this, and a couple of times you promoted my book, Bluefishing. Okay. There's a benefit for me. You know, someone may go out and get the book, someone may change, someone may do something, someone may come to a speakeasy. There's my benefit. Okay. Also, at the age of 55, I want people to change. I don't think selfish is a bad thing. In fact, I'm a great believer in move with purpose. Okay. Don't accidentally get through life. If there's no benefit to you and the other person, don't do it. Okay. That's just wasted spinning. So I'm getting a lot out of this interview. What I want you to think of is to have a relationship both people need to benefit. Both of them, not one person. If you've got a celebrity friend and all you want to do is show off that you're a celebrity friend and here's a selfie and I went to his party and I did this and he got me in here, then how's the benefit to him? So you've got to turn around on anyone and you've got to say to them, hey, what are you working on at the moment? Well, I'm trying to do a book. I can help you. In fact, I've got a podcast and I can interview on the podcast about your new book. Would that be of interest? You know, or you say, someone says, well, I'm looking at launching a new business. Well, how may I help you? Let's get together and let's throw some ideas and see where the business could grow or where there's potential stumbling blocks, and let's get over those so they don't pop up later down the road. Would that help you? You know, you've got to think, how can you benefit the other person? Bring something to the party. Okay. In your situation, every single question you asked me was selfish and looked after you. Didn't help me at all. Okay. So you've got to think, that's not going to keep a relationship going, is it?
No.
So it's a very vicious lesson. And I used you as an example. So thanks for being a good sport there. But when you get into a relationship, forget networking. That comes with good relationships. And here's another good thing. When you have a good relationship, when you look after someone and it's benefiting and it's growing both of you, that other person tells people about you. And that starts building up and up and up. You get a network by focusing on a relationship, not the other way around.
I love that. It's, to me, everything you're speaking of is common sense, not commonly used. And
yep.
And interesting, I've watched your other YouTube videos and you talked about how when people message you and say, hey, Steve, I love you. Anything I can do to help, I'll help. And you're like, that's the worst thing to say. And interesting enough, as I started to grow my network and started to, I guess, get some credibility and notoriety, and people would do that to me, and it'd be like, this is terrible. Like, what do you want? You know, and so many people contact you and it's so obvious that they want something. It's almost felt. It's like a felt feeling, like, what do you want? And it makes it worse when they're not transparent about it. And that's what I love about what you're speaking to, is because when you're really transparent about what you want and what you can give, it makes the relationship so much smoother and easier, rather than, you know, let's have a conversation. I just want to get to know you, but all their website stuff like, well, to help coaches get clients. I'm like, no, you don't, you know? So I'd love for you to speak to what gets in the way of people doing what you spoke to. What gets in the way of someone of really serving another person to build that relationship? What might get in the way? For example, for me, I used to be really insecure about, I'd notice these people in these high positions and celebrities and stuff, and I would get insecure, like, oh, what could I give to this person? What could I possibly have that would be of value to this person? I'm just not going to do it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I think a lot of people might deal with things like that when they even consider sending a message to someone of a higher status.
I think the first thing is that they overcomplicate things. You know, today it seems to be what we do. We overcomplicate the easy stuff, you know, the impactful stuff. You know, we look at building up a business, and before we look at the client or the potential client, we look at the website, we look at the CRM, we look at the funnels, we look at the Facebook advertising, we look at the banner, we look at all of these things before we look at the fact, are we solving a problem for a client? You see, what you've got to understand is an entrepreneur sends an invoice to solve someone's problem. That's it. You know, someone's got a problem. You've got a solution. For the exchange of a credit card, you will solve that problem. That's what business is. In its basic, truest form, that's what it is. But today we overcomplicate it. And today we're like, well, I want to get in touch with that person. Oh, why would they want to get in touch with me? I better write a really long letter or a really beautiful email or send them a video on social. No. What's the point? Now, we've spoken earlier, and I'm going back to the barbecue story. We've already discovered that your request during my invite to the barbecue was selfish for you, correct?
Yes.
Think about the person that you're contacting. What are they thinking? They are just as selfish. They're thinking, and as you just said, people will contact me and go, Steve, I love what you're saying. You know, any way that I can help you, you know, I'm thinking, what do you want? Because you haven't brought me any value. You haven't answered anything to me. You haven't helped me. In fact, you've given me a chore. I now need to discover how you can help me. I now have an extra problem in the day. And I get thousands of emails and DMs a day. I don't want 1,000 extra problems. I don't want to have to discover how you can help me. You know, but if you showed up and went, hey, I believe you like XYZ, or I know you've got this, say, I can help with that. Now you're showing up as a solution. So you've got to think to yourself, stop thinking about you. Forget you. We already know you're selfish, and you should be. Anybody listening to this should be selfish and should move with purpose. Stop thinking about you. Think about the person that you're contacting, the client, the relationship, the mentor, the coach, whatever, and think to yourself, what would make it interesting for them to want to communicate with me? What would make it compelling and engaging for them to be in a relationship with me? Ask that question.
That's incredibly powerful. And it's so refreshing to hear that, you know what, okay, I'm selfish. Like, cool. Most people like, no, the premise, like, no, selfish is bad. I'm like, no, I am selfish. I want stuff and everybody else wants stuff too. And I think the faster we can accept that, the faster we can move on. Okay, I get that you're selfish. Let me give you what you want, or at least do research and figure out where I can and support you. And one thing that's helped me with what we're talking about is knowing that, and you said it, when we overcomplicate things, we keep ourselves from opportunities. Because when I've gotten into those circles, I realized that everybody is human and we all deal with bullshit. And it's just that on the surface, we're not, you know, not everybody like, hey, by the way, I'm really dealing with this problem. It's that they don't tell you their problems right away. Yeah. And so here's what I'd like to ask you. So you've gotten the relationship started. To me, the next question is, how do you stay or keep in that relationship? Because to me, a lot of I think it's easier to get your foot in the door than it is to keep and nurturing that relationship in those circles. Because I've seen people come into those circles and get kicked out really quickly because they were doing all the wrong things, like being too needy or making too many asks. I'd love for you to speak to that. And I'm sure you've experienced that too in what you're doing.
Yeah, I've seen it on both sides. You know, I've had people trying to get into my relationships, and they'll step in with one piece of value, and then it'd be give. You've got to ask yourself, when was the last time I actually helped the person that I'm in a relationship with? You know, when was the last time they benefited from this relationship? And that's where see, let's be blunt. It's a work of art.
Mhm.
A relationship is a work of art that's never finished, never completed. It's always being touched up, made up. How many friends do you have that during your time of being a friend with them, you've had an argument?
Heaps. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
because again, it's like an artist. They make mistakes. They cut things off. They
Ah,
use the wrong color palette.
yeah.
So what you do is you repair it. You know, you
Right.
make sure it's smoothed over. You reattach. It's the exact same thing with a relationship. A relationship is a work of art. The second you stop working on it, it's done.
Boom.
Okay. But your friends, you meet up with your friends, you've got different topics to talk about. You got different interests to talk about. And every day there's a new topic, there's a new interest, there's new fun, there's a new bar, there's a new restaurant, there's a new girl in someone's life, a new partner in someone's. There's always changing points to continue and to add fuel to the fire to keep that relationship going. If you met up with your friend tonight and they had nothing to talk about, nothing had changed in their life, and then the following week you met them and it's the exact same, and then the following week you met them, the exact same. By the fourth week, you're going to be thinking of an excuse not to see them.
Mm.
Okay, because there's no spontaneity. There's no change. So when you're working with someone and you've helped them and then they've helped you, that's a brilliant time to go, so what are you trying to get done now? You know, what are you working on? What's important to you? What is your focus on at the moment? What problem do you have today that a pair of friends couldn't try and solve?
I love that so
Just
much.
be ready to work on it. Understand that the relationship during COVID, I was reaching out to all of the people that I knew and I had relationships with. And I was going, hey, I'm just checking in on you. Are you okay?
Mm.
Some of them I would send a bouquet of flowers to. Some I would send a bottle of whiskey to, you know, but I would focus on doing those kind of things just to keep them. I'm not near them. I don't need anything from them, but I showed up to make them smile. Sometimes I would like get a video and just send them a clip of a video because it made me smile. And I'd say, look, this made me smile today. I hope it does the same for you. I'm not asking for anything, but when they get my text and there's a little video and it makes them smile, isn't that a benefit in relationship?
Mm.
So it doesn't have to be money. You don't have to be solving the world's problems. Just show up to make the other person's life just a little bit better.
I love it because everything you've talked about are the little things I've done because I've taken it from your book and it's totally changed my life. Because the truth is nobody does the things you're talking about, like 99.9%. And I've totally taken that from you of like writing handwritten notes to people and sending it or writing them handwritten cards. And you wrote it in your book talking about, a card you have to touch, right? You can't just delete an email. You can delete
Yeah.
an email, but a card, you have to actually look at it and touch it and
Hold it. Yeah.
and hold it. And I guess the last question I'd like to ask you in relationships is what, besides the giving and looking at it as an art, what else puts the way you create relationships above and beyond what other people are doing?
Well, you actually mentioned it earlier,
Mm.
but in a simple word, simplicity.
Mm.
Okay. You see, today we don't want to think. Today,
Yeah.
when we think today, there is so much going on in the world, we get confused. You know, no one like wants to think too hard on anything. You know, it bothers them. It's a chore. If I can show up, perfect clarity, crystal clear simplicity as to why I am there and how it benefits you, you'll love it every day. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for argument's sake, I phone you, I knock on your door at 1 o'clock in the morning and you're staying with your friends and your friends have got dogs and a little baby. Okay. And I bang on the door at 1 o'clock in the morning and the dog starts barking and the baby wakes up and your friends wake up and I'm there and I go, hey, let's get together for a beer. How happy are you that I've done that? The answer is you're not going to be happy.
No.
Because everything around you is very noisy. It's woken the whole house up. It's woke you up at 1 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to be happy at all. But if I knock on the door and I go, hey, I had to get hold of you because you know that gentleman that you wanted to meet? Well, he's actually flying in and he's here for the next 2 hours. He's in the hotel just down the road and he says he's more than happy to have a cup of coffee with you to talk about your business. I'm
there.
How happy are you with me?
Oh, I love you. You're my best friend. You're coming over for Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Yeah. You see, the point is when you turn up as a hindrance, as a problem, and you're not giving anything to the situation, no one wants to know. But the second you turn up with value, it doesn't matter what's going on in the rest of the world. They love you. For me, I turn up with crystal clear simplicity, black t-shirt, big ugly fella. Hey, I'm here to make you smarter. I'm here to get you out of your complicated world and make you impossible to misunderstand. I'm here to establish clarity on the problem that you are solving, and then we've got to find out who's got that problem so you're now in business. I'm there for that. Do you want that? And I show up as that. I show up with crystal clear simplicity, clarity, and when someone talks to me, they either like me and understand me, or they hate me and they go away. Now, here's the danger. A lot of people try to capture these people. Why? Why would you try and capture someone who's made a decision that they don't like you? These people over here love you. You know, focus on them. Get more of them. Don't change yourself to capture these, because here's the slide, and it's a swing. If you swing from being 100% you to just 80% of you to gather more of these people over here, then you dilute the people that love you by giving them 20% less of you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's an old saying. I forgot where it comes from, but it's something to the effect of don't change yourself to fit the audience, just find the right audience.
Yeah.
Like they don't like your trick, great, find the people who do love it, because your effort for that is going to be much lower.
And that's the thing. There's a lot of people that know the term ROI, return on investment. Right. I've actually lived the better part of my life on ROE, return on energy.
Oh,
okay.
Good.
If I'm talking to you and I'm having trouble talking to you and I'm getting tired because I can't quite understand what you're saying, and I don't quite agree with it, and your questions are bad, and all of a sudden I'm getting tired and a little bit, distorted and grumbly, that's a low return on energy and effort, and I don't want to do it. So if it's taking no energy and no effort whatsoever, I'll do it all day. And if you think about your friends, if I said to you, in the next week, you've got to phone up 10 people you hate. 10.
I'm already cringing. Like,
Yeah. But if I said to you in the next week, you've got to phone up 10 people you love, you'll do that on day one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because every phone call is like, hey, I love you. It's brilliant. Hang up, next person. Hey, you're so motivated. You're so energized. You're having conversations with people you love. But if you're having conversations with people you hate, I wouldn't be surprised if you get to the end of the week and you haven't phoned up all those 10.
Yeah.
Because I'll do one a day, and then you'll be like, oh, I don't want to do two, and you won't do it. You won't finish it. So focus on your ROE rather than your ROI.
So the next question, I want to move on to a mindset question, because I've been watching all your interviews and this question has stuck with me. But before I go on, I just want to recap and just express how amazing the things you've done based on the principles you've shared just now in relationship building and building an international concierge company based on this very different way of looking at relationships and seeing simplicity in it and how amazing that is. So bravo to you, and to anybody listening, like, that's really it. Exactly to what Steve is talking about. So there's one thing you talk about in your podcast, and people like ask you about it, but then they move on. And I want to go deeper into it. You said that as you were growing up and you were creating the things you were doing, you said that you thought you were poor, and that afterwards you realized when you get into this circle, you said you're actually incredibly rich in character and experience. And I'd love for you to speak to that. And the reason is because for me, when I was starting building my network and getting those real cool people, I had this premise that I thought that everybody with money had all their shit together and they were perfect and like there were no bad people, because how could you be bad and successful? And I quickly realized that we're all making it up. A lot of people have a lot of flashy things on the outside, but they have no character. And I'd love for you to speak to what you saw and what you said.
So I grew up financially restricted.
Mhm.
It's a polite way of saying it. You know, the family didn't have a lot of money. We didn't. And so as I grew up, we never had takeaway food. We never went to restaurants. We never had a new car. We never went on holiday. I would get up. My mum needed something. My dad needed something. And we would work. And come the weekend, my dad would continue to work. And so I would finish school in the week. And then I would go to his work site on the weekend and help him for the weekend. And then come Monday, I'd start working, go back to school again. So I remember as I grew up thinking to myself, I don't get the chance to play. I don't have any money, so I can't go out with my friends. And I thought all of that stuff was affecting me. And I grew up quite bitter about how poor I was. And then all of a sudden, when I left home and I started working on my own, everyone would find an excuse to leave work early. Yet I was still there 2 hours afterwards. Everyone would get there at 9 o'clock on the dot, never before, at 9 o'clock. I would get there at 8 o'clock. So I've cleared up all my shit and I'm ready to go crazy at 9 o'clock. And so my mentality was very different. And I suddenly realized how much training my family had given me to prepare me for the world. You see, I don't want to work 26 hours in a 24-hour day. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. But you know, the difference is I can. And I know I can. And I'm willing to if I need to. You know, if I need to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to make a phone call with a client on the other side of the planet to help him out, then it's not a case of, oh, I don't want to get out of my bed. I do what's necessary. And that's where so many people avoid today. I've noticed today, especially today, we're in a society, forget age. This problem is as much a problem of an 18-year-old as it is a 50-year-old. Today, we do our job looking for an app or a piece of technology that can do it for us 10 times faster without us having to worry about it. Now, I love that thought process, but there comes to a point where all you're trying to do is replace you, and for you not to do more with the spare time you've got, but to do less and just sit on your backside watching TV. I don't agree with that. I use every single piece of technology to do as much as I can, so I get to do a 3-day week in 1 day. That way, every single week of my life, I'm doing 3 weeks worth of work. You know, I'm getting more life out of my day than a normal person because I am working it specifically to the benefit of every hour. And so I grew up suddenly realizing, hang on a minute, I was rich. You know, we didn't have any money, but I was being taught all of these lessons that quite simply gave me an unfair advantage over everyone else. So any of these people that had never had any stress, I knew how to handle stress. All of these people that didn't want to work an extra 4 hours in a day because it would bother them or they couldn't do it or they got tired. Hey, I've been doing it all my life. I know how to do it. You know, so I had an unfair advantage when I went out in the workplace, and it sticks with me today. At the age of 55, I still realize how educated, loved, and wealthy I was as a young lad.
That's so beautiful and impactful. And thank you so much for going deeper into that, because I think in going back to relationships too, it's acknowledging what you have to offer to people, to the relationships you're stepping into. And if you're living under the premise that, oh, I don't have the right background as the other people, but you're stepping into it with this really like, wow, I have so much to give and so much value, because 99% of the people don't step into relationships looking to give value and bring all of their value to the table. And I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people and like the very simple things like don't show up on time and don't follow up. I'm like, really? That's like the basics of doing it. And similar to you, when I was growing up, my family didn't have a lot of money either. And I kind of grew up on when I was, I watched my family create money on the way up. But growing up, we didn't have a lot either. And I grew up in my dad's glass factory, and we were hanging out where people are like the factory workers, and similar to you, like in the workshop and stuff, playing around with glass. So I get what you're talking about. I get the hustle, and I get the creativity and the resourcefulness that comes from that background. And truth be told, I wonder if it's true in where you're from, in Thailand, because I used to be a professional taekwondo player. The best taekwondo athletes come from lower income families, because taekwondo is the ticket to a university degree, the Olympics, world championships. They got a lot more on stake. There's nothing else to fall back on.
Yeah, but funny enough, I did Muay Thai when I was younger.
Cool.
I didn't use it I used it for all the wrong reasons. I wanted to be tough so I could beat people up in the pubs and things like that. But I noticed something along the way, similar to the work ethic, that all of the good fighters fought less. You know, the better you became as a fighter, the better you became as a taekwondo student, the less you fought, because you were prepared. And there's a difference between wanting to fight and being prepared to fight.
Yes.
And that's what I noticed as I went along. When I first started at kickboxing, I wanted to be the toughest guy in my village. I wanted to be able to beat people up. I wanted to be, tough and feared. And the weird thing is, as soon as I started getting good in the dojo, in the classroom, the less I fought outside in the street, to the point where I haven't had a fight for absolutely years. Hey, if someone threatens my family, I'll step up. I'm prepared, but I don't want to. And that's the difference. And I really like that. So I like the taekwondo background.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing happened to me the moment, because I wanted to be the toughest, and the male ego and stuff. The better I got, I was like, you know what? I know exactly what's involved in this altercation, and I don't want anything part of it. And I'm okay with myself. And to pull that back to our relationship conversation, is the better you get at building relationships, it's the less you need to do, because you know what to do.
Perfectly said.
Beautiful. So I want to respect your time, because I know we're kind of on time. Last question to you is, if you were to give a gift to entrepreneurs and solopreneurs or people who own businesses who are looking to grow to the next level or get out of their own way and build better relationships, what gift would you give them? It could be wisdom, it could be knowing, it could be words, it could be a poem.
Well, wisdom is something that you gain after doing things wrong. Wisdom is what you achieve based on experiences. You can't be given wisdom. Wisdom is a collection of experiences. And experiences come from when you do something. So my gift for you and for anyone listening would be ignorance. And that may seem the complete opposite to wisdom. But the trouble with intelligence today is that we get scared of trying things. Imagine if you were too ignorant to be scared. Imagine if you could not be frightened of anything. What would you try? And so I would give the power of ignorance for you to just try it. Stop thinking, stop being scared, stop planning, stop putting it into a 100-page PowerPoint presentation. Just start trying stuff. And then when you fail, rejoice in that experience, because that adds to your wisdom. So ignorance.
Funny you should say that. One of a renowned Scottish mystic by the name of Sydney Banks, they asked him, like, what would change the world? And he said, if people learn to be less afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. I realized this is part where I asked you to do your plug, but I let you do that in the beginning. So
you did it for me.
Yeah. Is there anything specific that you're working on right now that you really want people to know about, like something hot? I know it's during COVID time, but I think you might have something up your sleeve.
Yeah, well, hey, look, COVID is just another challenge, you know, and the world is going to be full of challenges, whether it be terrorist attacks, whether it be politics, whether it be recessions, whether it be a pandemic. I don't know what the next thing's going to be, but I guarantee you there'll be a next thing. If you can take charge of what's going on now and survive, it'll make you stronger for when the next thing comes along. Me, I've just been focusing on getting people uncomfortable and getting them to grow with impact. I have 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏.com and I have an Entrepreneur's Advantage with Steve Sims on Facebook. So those are my two focuses for people to really change the way they think.
So if you're watching and you want to experience Steve Sims and his magic, check out those things. I'll put all the links in the description. And if you haven't read Bluefishing, you read it. If you're my client, you automatically get it. That's mandatory reading for everybody I work with. They get Bluefishing, and if they don't read it, they're not allowed to work with me. I'm like, it really is, because that was the game changer. And lastly, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for just being you and showing the world that you can still be you and do what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Lighting people up, and it's been such a pleasure. And if you ever come to Thailand, hit your boy up, and we're doing stuff.
Good enough. I'll let you know.
All right. Bye, Steve.
Bye.